My mother lied about who my father was. I found out at his funeral. My name is Jordan, and for 28 years, I believed my father was a man named Raymond, my mom's long-term partner and the man who raised me. He wasn't particularly affectionate, but he was present. At least physically. He paid the bills, watched TV on the couch, and complained about everything. But I never questioned anything deeper. Until last month. It started when my mother called me in tears. Raymond died, she said, her voice shaking. A heart attack. He collapsed in the garage. I felt conflicted. Sad, but also empty. Like I should feel more, but didn't. The funeral was a quiet one. Only a few distant relatives came, and most of the time, I stood beside my mom in awkward silence. But what shattered my reality wasn't his death. It was what came after. The will. After the service, I was approached by a lawyer handling Raymond's will. He invited me to his office the following week. When I arrived, I expected the usual stuff, some dusty paperwork, maybe a few sentimental items. But the first thing he said was, "You're not listed as next of kin." I blinked. What do you mean? I'm his only child. The lawyer looked confused, flipping through the documents. No, he specified he had no children. And your name doesn't appear anywhere in the legal documentation. I thought it had to be a mistake. But then came the words that made my stomach drop. There's a letter. For your mother. From Raymond. He left it with instructions for her to give it to you. Did she say anything? She hadn't. Of course not. That night, I confronted her. She stood in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine like it was any other evening. Mom. What the hell is going on? Her hand trembled, wine splashing over the edge of the glass. You weren't supposed to find out like this. And then it came out. Raymond wasn't my biological father. The stranger in the photograph. She led me to a box in the attic, hidden beneath layers of old blankets and useless junk. Inside were photographs of a man I'd never seen before. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a military uniform. His name was Thomas Reed. He was your father, she said softly. I met him before I ever met Raymond. It was only for a few months, and then he had to leave for deployment. She never told him she was pregnant. Instead, she moved on with Raymond, and when he found out years later, he agreed to raise me, as long as she never told me the truth. He never wanted children. He did it for her. Out of guilt, maybe. Or obligation. I stared at the man in the photographs. I had his eyes. The obituary. That night, I couldn't sleep. I searched the name, Thomas Reed. And there it was. His obituary. Dated just 2 weeks earlier. He had passed away from cancer in a hospice in Arizona. He had lived less than 4 hours away from me. But it was the comments on the obituary page that destroyed me. Love you, Dad. You were the best grandfather ever. You gave me strength when I needed it most. He had other children. I scrolled and scrolled, heart pounding, fists clenched. I could have known him. I could have met him. He never even knew I existed. Confrontation. I confronted my mother again the next day. She tried to cry her way out of it, said she was protecting me, protecting him, protecting everyone. I didn't want to hear it. You had 28 years to tell me. He was dying, and you still said nothing. She said she thought it was better this way. Cleaner. That Raymond had agreed to be my father, and that should have been enough. But I knew the truth. She wasn't protecting me. She was protecting herself. The siblings. I tracked them down, his other children. 2 of them. One lives in Denver, the other in San Diego. I sent them a message. I didn't know what to say. Hi. I think we may be related. I just found out that Thomas Reed was my biological father. I expected silence. Or worse, anger. But one of them replied. His daughter, Alyssa. She told me that their dad had suspected there was someone out there. He had mentioned a woman from decades ago, someone he had loved deeply but lost contact with. He had wondered if he had a son, but never found answers. He died still wondering. Meeting them. Last weekend, I met Alyssa and Ben, my half-siblings. It was surreal. We looked alike. We shared habits. Laughs. Silences. They showed me home videos, pictures, journals. He loved woodworking. He played guitar. He volunteered at a shelter every Sunday. He was warm. Generous. Everything Raymond never was. And now I'll never get to meet him. Because of a lie. The aftermath. I haven't spoken to my mother in 2 weeks. She keeps calling. Leaving voicemails. Texting. I did what I thought was best. I loved you. You have to understand. But I don't. I can't. Because this wasn't just a secret. It was a theft. She stole my chance to know my father. To be loved by him. To say goodbye. And that's not something I think I can forgive. Not now. Maybe not ever. Rewriting what was stolen. 1. The box he left behind. A week after meeting Alyssa and Ben, Alyssa messaged me again. I have something for you. It was Dad's. He kept it in a locked drawer. After he passed, we were cleaning out his things, and I almost threw it away. But, then you wrote us. She mailed me a small wooden box with a letter inside, written over a decade ago. To the child I may never know. If you're reading this, then I guess the universe finally let us meet, in some way. I don't know who you are, what your name is, or if your mother ever told you about me. But if you exist, know this, I never stopped thinking about you. You were never a mistake. You were always a maybe, and always a hope. I would have loved you. I held that letter in shaking hands. I cried like a child. And then I cried more, because I realized no one had ever written me anything like that before. Not even Raymond. Especially not my mother. 2. The visit. 3 days later, I got in my car and drove back to my hometown. Not because I forgave her. But because I needed to say the things I didn't say when I walked out. She opened the door before I knocked. She looked older. Smaller. Like someone who had been holding her breath for weeks. Jordan, she said quietly, like my name physically hurt. Don't talk, I said. Just listen. I read her the letter. Word for word. She cried silently. No excuses this time. No lies. Just tears, the kind that come when the walls you built finally collapse. I was scared, she whispered. Scared he wouldn't want you. Scared you'd leave me. Scared I'd made the wrong choice. But you did make the wrong choice, I said, voice cracking. And I have to live with it. Every single day. 3. The birthday he never knew. I turned 29 last week. Ben and Alyssa drove in from their cities and surprised me with a small birthday gathering, just us, their spouses, and a cake their mom baked. We sang. We laughed. We told stories about our dad. Their dad. My dad. It was the first birthday that didn't feel empty. I kept looking at the chair across from me, the one left open, imagining him sitting there. I think, maybe, he would have smiled. I think he would have made a dumb dad joke. I think he would have hugged me. Even though he never got the chance to. 4. A message I didn't expect. A few nights later, I got a Facebook message. From a name I didn't recognize. Hi. I think you might be my brother too. I saw the comment you left on Thomas Reed's obituary. I've been doing some digging. My mom used to talk about a man named Thomas. Around the same time your mother was with him. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but her name was Rachel. She was 25. Another maybe. Another child he never knew. 5. The legacy of silence. I asked Alyssa if she knew anything about Rachel or her mom. She didn't. Ben didn't either. We decided to order a DNA test together. Waiting for those results was the longest 3 weeks of my life. Every day I checked the status. Every night, I imagined what it would mean to find out I had another sibling, someone else who had grown up in the shadows of a secret. When the results came in, I didn't even need to read the percentages. She looked just like him. 6. Mom's second letter. 2 days ago, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. But I knew the handwriting. My mother. Inside was a letter. And a picture of her and Thomas together. Young. Laughing. In love. Jordan, I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't think I deserve it. But I want you to know something, I loved him. More than anyone I've ever loved. And losing him, not to death, but to time, to fear, was the greatest regret of my life. I thought I could rewrite history by burying it. But all I did was bury the best parts of you too. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Not as the woman who raised you. But as the woman who failed you. 7. The dream. Last night, I had a dream. I was sitting on a porch, somewhere in the woods. The sun was setting. Thomas was there, carving something out of wood. A small toy plane. You look like him, I said. He smiled. I know. Do you hate her? I asked. He stopped carving. Looked at me. You don't get more time by hating someone. You only lose more of it. 8. Forgiveness is not a door, it's a path. I haven't responded to her letter yet. I don't know if I will. But I've started writing things down. Not for Reddit. Not for sympathy. For me. For the man I'll never know. And maybe, one day, for the children I'll have. So they'll know their grandfather wasn't a ghost. He was real. And he tried. Even when the world didn't let him. Echoes of a stolen name. 1. A family meeting that wasn't. Rachel came to visit. We planned a casual lunch at Alyssa's place, just the 4 of us, me, Alyssa, Ben, and the newly confirmed half-sister we never knew existed until a month ago. She walked in with nervous eyes and a trembling smile. We all stared for a second. It was eerie. Same eyes as Dad. Same chin as Ben. Same cautious quiet that I recognized in myself. We hugged, awkwardly, all of us trying to define a relationship that hadn't existed until a DNA test forced it to. Then Rachel pulled out a manila envelope and said, I brought something. Inside were faded photos. Her mom and Thomas. Holding hands. Standing outside a bar somewhere in Illinois. One photo had a date written in blue ink. September 1994. Ben froze. Alyssa put her fork down. That was 2 months after Thomas had married their mom. 2. Another secret. Another lie. But whose? I didn't want to say it out loud. But Ben did. Wait. Are you saying our dad cheated on our mom? Rachel looked down. I'm not saying anything. I just know what my mom told me. She said he wasn't a good man. Said he left when she got pregnant. That he already had a real family. We all sat in silence. For once, it wasn't about my mom. It wasn't about the lies she told. It was about the man we were all trying to claim in our own way. And realizing he may not have been the person any of us thought he was. 3. I finally went to her house. I hadn't seen my mother since I read her letter. But I went to visit. I needed to hear it. From her mouth. Tell me about him, I said. She took out a box from her closet. Full of old pictures, clippings, notes. Things I had never seen before. Things she'd kept hidden even from herself. One photo made my stomach twist. It was her, Thomas, and a baby. Me. I was probably 6 months old. He was holding me. Smiling. You told me he never saw me, I said. She closed her eyes. He did. Once. After you were born. He came to the hospital. Held you. Cried. He begged me to let him be involved. Why didn't you let him? She took a long, broken breath. Because I thought he'd leave. And I couldn't survive the leaving twice. I thought if I ripped the band-aid early, I'd save you from waiting for a man who'd never come back. But he did come back. Just not for me. Her tears dropped onto the photo. 4. Truth is messy. That night I stayed up thinking about Thomas. The man who wrote me a letter he thought I'd never read. The man who hugged me once and then disappeared. The man who apparently loved multiple women at overlapping times. I wanted to hate him. But I couldn't. Because I'm not sure I wouldn't have made the same choices, given his impossible position. Maybe he was weak. Or maybe he was human. Maybe the problem wasn't just what he did, but that no one ever let him explain it. 5. A call that changed everything. 2 days ago, Rachel called me in tears. Someone left a voicemail on my mom's old landline. It was from 1999. A cassette tape. My aunt found it while cleaning out the attic. The message was scratchy, but clear. Claire. I don't know if you'll hear this, but I'm sorry. I think about you and the baby all the time. I wanted to do the right thing. But I panicked. I'm trying to be a good dad to the kids I'm allowed to see. But I dream about her. I dream about Rachel. It wasn't the voice of a villain. It was the voice of a man torn in half. 6. A different kind of forgiveness. I called my mom this morning. Not to scream. Not to cry. To ask. What do you regret the most? She was quiet for a while. Then she said, not telling you who you were. I wanted to protect you from pain. But I gave you confusion instead. I thought silence was safer. But silence steals your history. She paused. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I'm not sure yet, I said. But I'm starting to forgive him. And maybe that's the first step. 7. The picture wall. Alyssa, Ben, Rachel, and I met again yesterday. We decided to start a photo wall. One for Dad. Each of us brought the few photos we had of him. We printed the ones we found online, in drawers, or saved from childhood albums. Each of us wrote a small note on the back of our favorite one. Mine was the hospital photo. On the back, I wrote. This was the only time I met you. And still, somehow. I miss you. 8. What we don't say still shapes us. I've started therapy. Not because I'm broken, but because I want to stop bleeding on people who didn't cut me. Because I want to stop waking up angry at ghosts. Because I want to build a future that's rooted in truth, not shadows. His final words weren't in the eulogy. 1. A call from the lawyer. 3 weeks after our photo wall, we got a formal letter. It was from Thomas's estate lawyer. Apparently, he'd updated his will 5 months before his death, quietly, privately, and without telling even Alyssa or Ben. That was strange, given how meticulous he'd been about keeping order. The letter was short. You have been named as beneficiaries and are requested to appear at the reading of Thomas Whitman's will. All biological children must be present. Biological. That word hit like ice water. They knew about me. And they knew about Rachel. 2. The room where we became real. It was surreal, sitting in a walnut-paneled office with 4 people who shared the same blood, but not the same memories. Alyssa fidgeted with a pen. Ben stared at the floor. Rachel looked like she might bolt at any second. Then the lawyer opened a folder and read. It wasn't about houses, stocks, or possessions. The first page was a letter. To my children. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. But you already knew that. What you don't know is that I didn't want to leave unfinished. I wrote this because I failed, in life, to be the kind of father each of you deserved. I left too much unsaid. So here's what I need you to know. 3. His confession. I loved you all. Even the ones I barely knew. Jordan, I wasn't there for your first steps. Or birthdays. Or the nightmares you must have had after realizing something in your home didn't feel honest. I saw you once. When you were 3. Your mother didn't know. I drove by the house just to see if you were real. You were in the yard. You fell, and I almost got out of the car. But I knew if I stepped out, I'd never walk away again. And I'd ruin what little piece your mother had built. That was the first time I ever truly hated myself. Ben looked over at me. Silent. But his hand brushed mine under the table. Some kind of solidarity. Rachel, I didn't know you existed until years later. I tried to reach out to your mother. But she made it clear she didn't want my presence. I respected that. But it killed me. I followed your school photos online. Creepy, maybe. But it was all I had. Rachel's hand trembled. She wiped a tear and whispered, I never knew. 4. The envelope. After the letter, the lawyer passed out individual envelopes. One for each of us. Inside mine was a handwritten note and a key. The note read. You always wanted to know what kind of man I was. I left behind a journal. It's locked in the top drawer of my desk. That key opens it. Read it when you're ready. Not sooner. Not out of anger, but out of the desire to understand. Ben and Alyssa got trust funds and property deeds, normal things. Rachel and I got pieces of a man's broken conscience. And oddly, it felt like more. 5. My mother found out. She called after the will was read. I heard, she said quietly. About the letter. The key. Everything. I didn't respond. Then she asked, did he tell you why he left us? I hesitated. Not in so many words. But I think he left you, not me. That silence on the other end of the line said more than anything else could. Eventually she said, I wasn't easy to love. I know that now. But he could have tried. I almost told her I'd read the journal. But I hadn't. Not yet. I was scared of what was in it. Of what truths I'd have to carry once I opened that drawer. 6. The journal. It took me 2 weeks. Then one night, I opened the drawer. Inside was a black leather-bound book. Worn at the edges. On the first page, one line. This is not an apology. This is a mirror. And what I found inside wasn't a neat redemption story. It was raw. Entries about nights he drank too much because he couldn't see his kids. Notes about dreams where he was trying to call someone, but the number never worked. Memories of sitting outside my house on Christmas Eve, watching through the window, imagining he was inside. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He only wanted to be understood. 7. We had a bonfire. Ben came up with the idea. A bonfire behind our childhood home, where we used to roast marshmallows as kids. We all came. Even Rachel. Even my mom. Each of us brought something to burn. A letter. A photo. A memory we wanted to let go. My mom brought the picture of her and Thomas from the hospital. She stared at it a long time before tossing it into the fire. Rachel threw in her mother's last voicemail, the one telling her never to trust Thomas Whitman. Alyssa burned the birthday card he missed when she turned 12. And I burned the DNA test. Not because I didn't care. But because I didn't need a piece of paper to tell me who I was anymore. 8. What I've learned. Grief doesn't just come when someone dies. It comes when you realize the life you could